Abusia michi ona misanso mu akwa ba emna channel so ha eda so aye be media GH abusia be se wa se ene day di kan wani twa channel so ni di no go kwan so abusia ye be se wa se obe subscribe dia my YouTube channel no abusia bo notification bell no so for more podcast updates abusia eye your former finance minister yes Ken Ofori Atta abusia ene ensem bi aba bonte abebo eye Ken Ofori Atta enya asem ketwa we ena ama eye Black Rasta, yes, of a Black Empire Media. Credit goes to a Black Empire Media. Black Rasta. What any simwa? Release a Ken Ofori Atta no a dia ice for Abusia. Omo de a tracker. The ato a year. Omo de tracker. The ato a Ken Ofori Atta. Just omo de 29. Just we be on Namu na no Abusia. Omo air tracker no. Or ye na been so obedwania. Dia tracker ebe alert o mo say Ken Ofori Atta edwane afiri eye oman ni nabusia ensem odi tuja efa eye Ken Ofori Atta hono edoso ene eye ensem a wayi ade apie ene ennioma abusia Ken Ofori Atta ekodru eye US abonten so abusia otumi eye no Black Rasta elikini na enya asem ketwa yenko na yentie ensem mu ankasa enchiremu adokwanti a ama ahisefo ede eye tracker ede ato eye former finance minister Ken Ofori Atta ne nine no abusia Black Rasta edini na dia tuja yentie masesia eda so aye be media GH.
They have been trying to get him come out on bond, what you call bail, but the American authorities kept pussyfooting so that they would be sure of what they were doing. Well, yesterday he was released and he went back home. Why was he released? I must say that when he was released, they put a ring around his leg. Now, this man has been humiliated beyond measure. First, he was locked up like a common criminal right there at the detention center. My brother, my sister, as if that was not enough. Now that he has been released on bond, they've put a certain ring around his leg. In case he attempts to run, this ring will start blowing an alarm. His passport has also been taken away from him. Can I tell you more? This is what you've been waiting for. Why did they release him? Come here. Now, his lawyers have been trying to get him out on bail. What in America they call on bond. What bond was posted? Now, this was what happened. Now, Ken Ofori Atta has been sick. Overly sick. We are told that he went into some seizures whilst right there inside the Caroline Detention Center. Doctors were called in there to look at him time after time aside the routine checkups. This man fell ill over and over because he has missed his pizza. He has missed his American breakfast and lunch. His American style dinner. My brother, my sister, he kept falling ill. And the court had to look at it and say, you know what? Once this man is fighting his case, let us release him on health grounds. Let him go out, take his passport, put a wire ring around his leg, and keep an eye on him. If he wants to die, this is not where he should die. He should rather die outside here.
To you. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Lawyer Kpebu. If you can hear us, I don't know whether you're muted. Good morning. Please, thank you for joining us.
Excellent. Yeah, good morning. Morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. So let me first get your thought on really your understanding of this judicial order, as we saw in that statement coming from the lawyers of Mr. Ofori Atta, that eventually led to his release from ICE detention. What's your understanding of this judicial order as a lawyer?
So, Beatrice, in simple terms, that is an order for bail. So when an accused or a suspect is given bail pending trial, it means that he's been released from custody to go home, but the case is still in court. The case has not been concluded. So you hear as part of, and I'm sure you mentioned this, as part of the further information, they have the next court sitting on the 27th of April or so.
Yes.
So it tells you that the case hasn't concluded yet. So as to whether Ofori Atta is guilty or not, we would not know until the case is concluded. But at least for now, he's free to go home, and then there are measures in place to ensure that he comes to stand trial, to make sure that he would attend court on the 27th and beyond that. Yes, so the bail doesn't mean Ofori Atta is free forever. No.
Indeed. No. What you're essentially saying is that it is just the sleeping place, as it were, just to put it in simple terms, that has changed. This has no impact, as it were, on this immigration issue and indeed the extradition process that Ghana has also started.
Absolutely. So it's good you've mentioned the extradition case, yes. So now that means also that he potentially could be taken back into custody once the extradition case gets to that stage. Because you see, a critical part of extradition proceedings is usually that they keep the accused person in custody. Because you see, you don't want to finish an extradition case and then you don't have the accused or the suspect or whoever is wanted to deport the person, to take the person to where he's being wanted. So usually, when the extradition case is going on, they don't grant bail to the accused person. No, they usually don't. Even in Ghana, we don't do it much of the time, right? And in the US, it's the same. And for lawyers who are following, or for those who are not lawyers but want to read, if you read one of the cases I took to the Supreme Court, Martin Pebu number 2 versus Attorney General number 2, you see the Supreme Court compare our law to the US law. And the Supreme Court made a point that in the US, they almost never grant bail to somebody undergoing extradition proceedings. But in Ghana, we want to give the judges more discretion. You know, the non-bailable cases, because some cases were listed and the law was that the judge should never grant bail. So the judge didn't even have a discretion in it. So when the Supreme Court was taking away that blanket ban, or call it, that blanket ban, the Supreme Court said, no, we'll leave it for the judges to decide on individual basis, etc. Right? So the point is that when it comes to extradition in the US, it's almost impossible to get bail. So the fact that Ofori Atta is on bail is not the end of the matter. Depending on how good our extradition case goes, he would have to be taken back into custody.
So the understanding is that somebody who is already going through an extradition process, he shouldn't have bail. Yes, but there's also the immigration bit. Why, in your opinion, do you think the judge or the court would give this order, which eventually would give him bail, aside from his health? Because earlier, ICE told us that he was medically fit to be in detention.
Yeah, so Beatrice, what we'll do is that that's why we've called upon Attorney General, despite some people, and I heard even one of the panelists this morning saying that the Attorney General was doing media trial. No, that's not what he's doing. So we will continue to plead with the Attorney General to come out and give us updates. Whoever thinks it's a media trial, sure, it's a democracy. The person is entitled to their opinion. But for the larger majority, we will need to hear, even if maybe the Attorney General decides that henceforth not he himself, but maybe a designated senior official, fine. But as for the updates from the Attorney General's chambers, we would need that. You see, those who are afraid, right, are the ones who don't want the Attorney General to give us progress so that it will be quiet and then it will seem as if they didn't do anything wrong. You see, so when you hear the calls, no, the Attorney General is doing a media trial. No, the actual thing is, get the Attorney General silence him, so that once you don't hear from the Attorney General, then it will look like, nothing happened really, and Ora is dead and those things that they are doing. We've seen through it. We will call on the Attorney General to continue to update citizens. Look, information is a currency for development. The citizens need to know at every point what's going on so that it fits into the development agenda. Good. So Beatrice, the point is that now I would not be able to go into the details of why the judge granted bail because we don't have the court transcript. Perhaps the Attorney General does. So if he is able to come out, then he can give us more details because, citizens were shut out of the hearing on the first day. We'll leave out the reasons. So you see that I don't want us to speculate, right? But the point
we had the lawyers of Ofori Atta saying the subject was too sensitive and so it should be held in camera or the hearings should be in camera, and the court seemed to have agreed with that and granted that.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. The reasons, too sensitive. It's relative. It's relative. I don't want us to digress so that because they are a lot more to cover here. So that's their call. It's all right. It should not detain us. I won't spend much time on it. But rather, what we should be looking at now is that all this brouhaha, rigmarole, due process. You see, they are running under due process. I remember yesterday I said no. They're doing due process one-sided, not completely. The same due process in the Constitution, Article 19, and I'm happy the MPP panelist was referring to Article 19. Beatrice, if you have your Constitution there, look at Article 19, Clause 3. 19, Clause 3, the first part of this says that, I'm paraphrasing, I don't have mine here. It says, the trial of an accused person shall take place in his presence. The trial of an accused person shall take place in his presence. So, it is a duty, constitutional duty, for Ofori Atta to come and stand the trial. If Ofori Atta and the MPP have respect for the Ghanaian constitution, Ofori Atta should be on the next flight available to Ghana.
So let me read that to you, Mr. Akpegbu. It says, the clause 3 says, the trial of a person charged with a criminal offense shall take place in his presence, unless A, he refuses to appear before the court for the trial to be conducted in his presence after he has been duly notified of the trial, or B, he conduct himself in such a manner as to render the constitution of the continuation of the proceedings in his presence impracticable, and the court orders him to be removed for the trial to proceed in his absence.
Excellent. So you see, the trial of a person charged with an offense, so that's an accused person. A person charged with an offense is what we call an accused person, shall take place in his presence. So you see the way you've seen it, Beatrice. Now, it's a duty. It's not a choice to attend trial. So when you hear those who haven't understood the constitution well, and they say, Ofori Atta has no duty to come to court. No, it's not his duty. He can come if he wants. It's a lie. It is what we've read. The part that says, unless he refuses. Let's be careful. There are 1,001 decided cases. When you say refuses, it doesn't mean the accused person can sit at home and say, but the constitution says if I refuse, you can go on. No, that's not the meaning. If you refuse, right, what they'll do is that you'll be arrested in the first place, and if you are brought into court, the refusal part, and you are being rowdy, etc., then you'll be taken into custody. The refuse doesn't mean you refuse and you are in your house drinking cocoa and kose and masa, right? Or eating akule, etc. No. If you refuse, you'll be in custody. You'll be in custody. So please, let it sink and sink well to those who are saying that Ofori Atta has no duty to come and assist the court, etc. It's a lie. That is how come when you refuse and you're in Ghana, we will seek the accused out, arrest him and take him to court by force, like we say in Ghanaian English, by force. And if he's being rowdy in court, then he's taken into custody, then the trial will continue. And then, if he refuses because he's outside Ghanaian borders, then we apply for extradition. And that is what we've done in Ofori Atta's case. So, Ofori Atta is breaching the constitution by refusing to come down. It's a breach of the constitution, Article 19, Clause 3. It's a constitutional duty that he must come. So anybody, the MPP, Akufo-Addo, all the big wigs who don't tell and cannot publicly come and confirm to us that they've told Ofori Atta to come down and perform his constitutional duty are doing that a great disservice. And it's an indication that they are not ready to come and govern in future, because if they don't understand accountability, how are we ever going to trust them with power again? It's a shame. So every time I hear people, and yesterday I was on another platform, and when I said these things and also mentioned the role of the special prosecutor, then Frank Davis took me to the cleaners and said all manner of unprintable things. I'm not responding to those. I just want to stay to the core. The message is that under law, Ofori Atta's continued stay in the US is a breach of Article 19, Clause 3. He is aware we are looking for him. At a point, there is correspondence between him and his lawyers and the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And far earlier, he had offered to do virtual hearings. We like to call all virtual hearings Zoom, right? Because I think we like Zoom is easier to pronounce, it appears, right? So he's aware he's wanted. Now, and is it Gabby who mentioned, Gabby Tete mentioned that the fact that he's wanted is also on the OSP website. And he and his lawyers have been communicating with OSP. So when the same lawyers turn around and say due process, Ofori Atta is not aware of any charges, then it's so farcical, very, very farcical, very illusory. And that's how come I had to say that some people were making submissions in a manner that suggests.
Na abusua fast forward no me de okoti lawyer Martin Pebo oye legal practitioner nsem yi bae wodi akire yi pa a wodi hu komo omaye update ana se omaye eye de ekoso up and down de ekoso de wonim international law de wohua wonim se efa ensem na won se kin Ofori Atta omo beja na omunya na ensem ben ono no so kan enkoti no